6 months since the divorce, Clara dedicated her life to working harder. But at night, when Clara was returning home from the office, a man suddenly grabbed her wrist and whispered, "Follow me and pretend to be my future wife." Who was that man, really? Before starting the story, don't forget to click subscribe and write in the comments section what city you are watching from. 6 months. 6 months had passed since the divorce papers were signed, etching an indelible line between the life Clara Hayes had known and the hollow existence she was now forced to navigate. The former Mrs. Andrew Kingston, a title she wore with the heavy silence of a discarded crown, had thrown herself into her work with the frantic energy of a shipwrecked sailor clinging to a spar. Her office, a sleek, minimalist space in a towering glass building in Midtown Manhattan, had become her sanctuary, her battlefield, and her executioner. The apartment in Chelsea, once vibrant with the promise of a shared future, was now a refrigerated tomb. Every expensive, curated item was a ghost. The Italian marble countertop where Andrew used to make his morning espresso, the velvet armchair where they'd argued playfully over Sunday crosswords. Each corner was a monument to a love that had withered and died. To combat the chilling emptiness, Clara worked. She embraced the brutalist schedule of a dedicated mergers and acquisitions lawyer, often staying until the cleaning crew mistook her for a particularly tenacious piece of office furniture. Physical exhaustion, she hoped, was a worthy antidote to the exhaustion of the heart. On this particular Thursday night, the late October air outside was a biting mix of dampness and urban chill. The neon glow of Times Square felt miles away, replaced by the hushed elite atmosphere of the financial district. The clock on her laptop screen stubbornly displayed 11:47 p.m. She had finally signed off on the last round of edits, her eyes burning with fatigue. A sudden, fierce pang of hunger ripped through her carefully maintained composure. She realized she hadn't eaten anything substantial since lunch. Deciding against the grim solitude of takeout in her apartment, Clara opted for a small, dimly lit bistro a few blocks from the office, a place called Le Ciel, known for its discreet booths and late-night kitchen. The restaurant's warm, amber light spilled onto the wet cobblestones outside, a gentle, contrasting invitation to anyone seeking temporary refuge from the cold, harsh realities of the city. Clara, dressed in a sharp navy power suit and comfortable but scuffed work heels, found the air inside heavy with the scent of truffle and aged wine. She walked to the counter to place a quick order to go, mentally already back in the cab heading home. As she waited for her order, a sudden, sharp sensation ignited on her wrist. A hand, warm yet firm, closed around her right forearm. Before she could gasp or react, a voice, a deep, urgently whispered baritone, brushed against her ear. "I'm Daniel. Please follow my lead. Keep walking and pretend for the love of God that you are my fiancé." Clara froze, her breath catching in her throat like a startled bird. She twisted her head, her sharp lawyer instincts kicking in, ready to unleash a torrent of professional fury. Instead, she found herself staring into the most extraordinary pair of green eyes she had ever encountered. The man, Daniel, was undeniably handsome, with a tousled mess of dark brown hair and the sharp tailoring of a Savile Row suit, but his eyes were wide, darting with a genuine, unmistakable panic that transcended his polished exterior. He looked like a masterpiece on the verge of shattering. She didn't protest. She couldn't. Before her brain could formulate a single, coherent word, Daniel's grip, gentle enough not to bruise, firm enough to command, tightened. He pulled her, not roughly, but with an unyielding sense of direction, past the host stand and toward a large, imposing table tucked away in the back corner. Clara's gaze swept over the table. It was occupied by 5 other individuals, 2 women and 3 men, all impeccably dressed, their expressions severe, their postures radiating corporate tension. They looked less like people enjoying a late dinner and more like a clandestine board meeting. The air surrounding them was thick, charged with the hushed electricity of high-stakes negotiations. Daniel, still holding her wrist as if she were a lifeline, marched her to the table like a general returning from a victorious, yet grueling campaign. Without hesitation, he cut directly into a tense, murmured business discussion, causing all 5 heads to snap in their direction. The serious, expectant faces morphed instantly into masks of surprise and confusion. Clara's heart hammered a wild, frantic rhythm against her ribs. She could hear the pulse thrumming in her ears. She scanned the expressions. Curiosity in the eyes of one woman, outright skepticism from an older gentleman, and a clear, undisguised irritation at the sudden, unprofessional interruption from the group's presumed leader. Daniel, however, forced a smile, a wide, brilliant facade that didn't quite reach his panicked eyes, and broke the strained silence. "My apologies, everyone," he said, his voice taut, yet maintaining a forced calm. "There's someone I absolutely must introduce." He paused, allowing the silence to stretch, amplifying the drama of the moment. "Everyone, meet my future wife." The words, delivered with such bold conviction, stole the air from Clara's lungs. She felt as though she were suspended over a massive, dark precipice. Daniel's thumb pressed a distinct, silent warning against her wrist, the subtle, unmistakable signal that her cue to act had arrived. She had to play the role now. Clara met Daniel's frantic gaze. In the depth of his green eyes, she saw not just panic, but a raw, profound desperation. This man was in serious trouble. And now, by some bizarre, twisted fate, his success or failure rested on her ability to perform. She swallowed hard, the effort of gathering her scattered courage feeling like trying to scoop grains of sand with her bare hands. Her throat felt tight, a massive lump blocking any potential sound. She took a tiny, shaky breath. "Hi, everyone," she managed, the sound of her own voice sounding foreign and thin to her ears. "I'm Clara. It's lovely to meet you all." Her eyes darted over the faces, searching desperately for any flicker of doubt, any sign of recognition. All she found were politely curious, formal smiles. Then her glance snagged. Across the table, sitting directly opposite Daniel, was a man in tortoiseshell glasses. His eyes, dark and familiar, were wide with an expression of utterly thunderstruck disbelief. That face, the shape of his jaw, the specific way his brow furrowed in shock, the precise angle of his shoulders. She knew that face better than her own. Andrew Kingston, her ex-husband, was staring back at her with the exact same mixture of utter astonishment and profound confusion. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The luxurious bistro, the hushed conversations, the clatter of silverware, it all dissolved into a muted background hum. Only the two of them remained, locked in a deafening, suffocating silence across the expanse of the polished mahogany table. The tension around the table intensified, becoming a palpable, suffocating force. Andrew's stare, a blend of astonishment, hurt, and perhaps a flicker of betrayal, pierced Clara to the core. She felt exposed, stripped bare in front of a gallery of judgmental strangers. Daniel, sensing the immediate, inexplicable shift in the atmosphere, perhaps misinterpreting Andrew's stunned silence, interceded instantly. Without missing a beat, before anyone could voice a single catastrophic question, he spoke up with forced brightness. "We're famished. We'll just go place our order quickly. Be right back," he declared. In the blink of an eye, he snatched Clara's hand and pulled her away from the table, which now felt less like a negotiation center and more like a volatile, ticking time bomb, towards the privacy of a narrow, dimly lit service corridor. The moment they reached the relative darkness of the hallway, Clara ripped her arm from his grasp, the sudden, violent movement a physical manifestation of her exploding fury. "What in the actual hell was that?" she hissed, her voice low, sharp, and laced with absolute rage. "You dragged me here like a prop. Who are you? Why did you do this to me?" Daniel's face, pale and glistening with anxious sweat in the faint light, crumpled with immediate regret. "I'm so sorry, Clara. I truly, deeply apologize. I had no choice," he pleaded, his green eyes begging for mercy. "You have to understand. This is everything. This is my career, my promotion, my entire year's work hanging in the balance." Daniel finally let the dam of his composure break, his explanation tumbling out in a rush of choked, heavy words. My boss, old Mr. Caldwell, he's hopelessly old school, a dinosaur, Daniel explained, running a hand desperately through his perfectly coiffed hair. He genuinely believes that stability in personal life, a partner, a fiancé, shows dedication and makes clients feel secure. It's barbaric, I know, but this meeting, this deal with Andrew, it's the most important one of the year. Caldwell has been hounding me for weeks. Daniel, bring your lady, bring your fiancé, or someone who looks like she cares. He gestured wildly, his frustration mounting. I tried everything. I even hired an escort, a professional date, but she canceled on me 10 minutes before I walked in the door. I was desperate, Clara. Absolutely panicked. I saw you standing alone at the counter. You looked tired, maybe a little lonely, and I know it sounds completely insane, but you just looked like someone who was having as bad a night as I was. He sighed, the sound heavy and defeated. It was a stupid impulse, a ridiculous instinct, and I just acted without thinking. Clara stared at him, unblinking. Her high-powered, analytical, legal mind was struggling to process the sheer theatrical absurdity of the situation. Daniel was in genuine trouble, and she, a random, exhausted stranger, had inadvertently been drafted as his savior. But suddenly, all that drama felt secondary, irrelevant. Daniel, momentarily regaining his composure, shifted the focus back to the business. The man with the glasses, the one you met, Andrew. He's my key client, the one that means the difference between a promotion and a pink slip. I cannot make any kind of mistake in front of him, Clara. The mention of the name, Andrew, spoken so casually by this complete stranger, hit Clara like a sudden, unexpected physical blow. She flinched, turning her head slightly to hide the sudden, raging storm of emotion churning beneath her surface. Daniel had no idea that the man he desperately needed to impress was the very man who had shattered her heart 6 months ago. He didn't know that the woman he had randomly seized was still fighting a desperate, losing battle to forget her past. A past now sitting 2 tables away, waiting for them to return. Daniel was blissfully, catastrophically ignorant. Clara took a moment, absorbing the weight of his distress, swallowing the large, painful lump that refused to dissipate in her throat. She decided that adding her messy, complicated, soul-crushing divorce to his already dire predicament would be cruel. It was, after all, only an act. Just a few hours. A single, insane evening. Then she would disappear back into her quiet, lonely apartment, and everything would return to its empty normal. "Please, just help me. Tonight only," Daniel pleaded, his voice cracking with sincerity. "Name your price. Anything you want. Money, I'll pay you. Whatever it takes." Clara stood there, silent for a long, uncomfortable moment. Her brain, still whirling with the improbability of the scenario, struggled to reconcile the high-stakes drama with the sincere desperation of the man before her. She finally met his gaze again, sweeping across his handsome, troubled features for any hint of manipulation or lie. All she found was a raw, genuine despair. He was not lying. He was utterly, completely desperate. "Only tonight," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible, a fragile promise made in the flickering light of the corridor. Daniel nodded sharply, a wave of relief washing over his face so intense it was nearly painful to watch. "Yes, tonight only. I swear, after this, I'll never bother you again." Clara let out a long, shuddering breath, allowing the sudden, crushing weight of the situation to settle. She didn't know how to react, but she recognized the universal agony of Daniel's plight. This was, without a doubt, the craziest thing she had ever agreed to, yet in Daniel's eyes she saw a reflection of her own former desperation, someone drowning and blindly reaching for a hand. Returning to the table, Clara forced a bright, artificial smile onto her face, a professional mask honed from years of high-pressure legal battles. Every step she took felt leaden, as if she were traversing a tightrope strung between the painful cliff of her past and the unsettling, unpredictable expanse of her future. She slipped into the seat beside Daniel, who immediately and seamlessly reached for her hand under the table. his fingers interlocking with hers in a move that suggested years of comfortable habit. His grip was warm and steady, an anchor in her sudden, bewildering storm of emotions. Clara's eyes involuntarily sought out Andrew. He was looking at her, his expression unreadable, a complex mixture of shock, confusion, and something far deeper that made her heart flutter with a terrifying, uncontrolled beat.